everybody. This is Rob Henry, and you're listening to the Suffering Meatball Chronicles podcast with my co-host, Johnny Epiphone.
Hey, everybody.
Episode 13 coming right at you about Judas Priest, the UK band that changed metal music. They didn't change it, Johnny. They invented it, right?
Well, them along with Black Sabbath.
Right.
And
But
both being from Birmingham, funnily enough.
yes, being from Birmingham and coming out in the late 70s, right? Priest really started like in 74 or something like that at with young members and all that.
Yeah, but their roots go back to the late 60s, right?
Well, I thought it was early 70s. Their first tour was in 74, right? But that was like an infancy before they got signed.
Right.
They started out the same kind of time that Sabbath them in Birmingham was like this crazy, like metropolis of like the genesis of metal, true metal.
Yeah, I think an option of working in a factory for the rest of your life or playing in a rock band, I think I know what I'd pick.
Yes. Yeah, that was like the height of disco, really. I mean, we had Kiss, but that was right around when Kiss was becoming popular too, where it's the 70s, mid 70s.
Yeah.
Right? Love Gun came out in 77, right?
Right.
And before that, we had Kiss Alive 2 or Kiss
Yep.
Alive 2, or the first Kiss Alive, right?
Right.
And then we had Zeppelin, and we had some other bands in there that were heavy, Rainbow, all these other bands, but nothing prepared us for Judas Priest.
They were really, I'd say they came up with the blueprint for modern heavy metal for sure.
Yes. And I have the first thing on the top of my notes list is British metal gods.
Yeah.
I spent so many hours listening to this band, and I hope that our listeners can relate. And if you don't know about their, everybody knows Living After Midnight or Breaking the Law, but they have an extensive catalog, and like we said, that goes back, to the mid to late 70s, and they're still here today, in 2026, just creating metal music and selling out arenas still, and just keeping it fresh after 50 years or 40 plus years of whatever
Don't they have
metal.
a new album coming out this year, as a matter of fact?
I saw one that was released. The last one was released in 2025. No, they released the War Pigs, because of Ozzy and stuff, a charity version in 2025.
Oh,
But
okay.
then after that, yeah, their latest studio album was 2024. So I don't know. Maybe they are going to release some stuff. That would be killer.
Yeah.
Would love that. You just froze up. I can't see my little. I don't know what's going on here.
I see your waves.
It says connected. Okay, cool. All right. So a cool fact about Priest. Judas Priest were formed in 1969. So you were right, Johnny, in Birmingham, England, by lead vocalist Al Atkins and bassist Brian Bruno Snappenhill, and John Perry on guitars, and John Feza
Got me.
Partridge on drums. Perry took his own life at age 18, and amongst the replacements the band auditioned was future Judas Priest guitarist Kenneth K.K. Downing. At the time, they turned him down in favor of a 17-year-old instrumentalist, Ernest Chataway, who played with the Birmingham band Black Sabbath when they were still called Earth. So going back to our original conversation, the bands all kind of intertwined. They trading
Yeah.
musicians, the folks that started Judas Priest all left, you know, and it became something else with other Birmingham musicians and stuff, KK was still in the band. I think they're gonna bring him back. I don't know. I think he may do some album stuff. Uh,
Could be.
but,
You know what amazes me is just how many musicians come out of Birmingham back then.
right.
Like,
It was a mecca
yeah, it
of
was
new
for a
wave of
total
British
industrial
metal.
town.
Yeah, the new wave of British metal, right? Coming right out of Birmingham, England. So, again, I've spent many hours. Before we started recording, I was listening to Sad Wings of Destiny. And it just as a teenager, just remember all these great songs. And I've had the opportunity to see him several times over the years. uh, and Johnny, I know you've seen him at least once, right?
Yes.
And this was, well, I'm gonna go ahead and let you tell your story, and then I'll jump in.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't remember much about the show. It was when Priest played with Megadeth and Testament as their openers back in the end of 1990. And actually, about all I remember of Priest, besides the fact that I was really pleased with their set list, it like it hit on to pretty much everything I wanted to hear, including their cover of Fleetwood Mac's Green Manalishi with the two-pronged crown.
Yes, great song. Great
Which
song.
I
I never
believe
could
they
understand what that song was about, though. I mean, I must have read the liner notes, the lyrics, hundreds of times, but I still couldn't figure out what the song was about. Was it?
I think it was about the devil. Peter Green was probably in the infancy of his mental illness episodes back then.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, he I believe he was schizophrenic, and his LSD use exacerbated that. And he wrote some pretty crazy stuff in the end days of his time in Fleetwood Mac.
really? So the Green Man Lucy with the two-pronged crown was was about the devil,
I think so, or a devil.
a devil, right? The schizophrenic devil in that guy's head. Anyway, that opening lick is any metal fan should know that song and that opening, like that. So many parties as a teenager, just having that so loud we couldn't even hear ourselves, talk to each other.
Yeah, I would say more people probably are familiar with Priest's version than the original Fleetwood Mac version.
Right. So that show that you were talking about happened on Sunday, December 9th in 1990 at the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, which we have spoken about that venue many a times. It was on the Painkiller World Tour, which Painkiller, but that's another great comeback for those guys. Their 12th studio album. And yeah, the two bands that opened up were Megadeth and Testament. I was 36 at the time and paid $19.50
Woo!
for great seats. I do remember seeing Testament and Megadeth because again, we saw Megadeth a lot in the 80s, but Testament was a West Coast band and really didn't, you know, make it
Yeah, they didn't
here.
do as many headlining small club tours as Megadeth did in their beginning days.
They did toward the mid 90s when grunge took over and they were at Jack's a lot. I saw them many times at Jack's, have great stories about meeting Chuck Billy at Jack's in Springfield. Um, Cool fact, the tour was known for its intense energy, making a return to the heavier sound for the band with the new drummer, Scott Travis.
Oh, yeah, yeah, because Dave Holland had, bowed out at that point or been fired. I'm not sure why he left Priest.
Yeah, so Travis was the new drummer, and it brought massive intensity to the band. And that Painkiller album is there's a lot some punk songs on there, you know?
Yeah,
It was far removed from
Turbo.
Turbo. Yeah,
Yeah,
which late 80s.
I think it was a direct response to the reaction that Turbo got. They went back to a more classic hard, rock metal sound.
Yeah, they went back to their roots because we can talk about that album Turbo, but let's not because it doesn't really warrant our attention because there's so many other great Judas Priest albums.
Yes.
There's a lot of Judas Priest albums. And the Capitol Center was a pretty cool place to see the show. And Priest did not disappoint that Sunday. It was great. I remember coming away with my ears hurting and being worn out from jumping around and just having fun. I know Mike was there. I don't remember the probably Russell and Sean maybe in the 1990 we were still hanging out then. It may have been that girl. She may have been there. I really don't
No, she
remember.
wouldn't have been there that 1990 because when I met you, you were in
Yeah, I was
the
already
endings of
yeah,
it.
right. Right, and I had already met my future wife around that
Yeah, I
time.
was with you when you met your future wife for the
Yeah,
first time at the bowling
well, let's
alley.
talk about that some other time.
Okay.
We don't wanna drag her into this at all, but that was kinda my state of mind there. Uh, yeah, again, I remember seeing Megadeth and Testament, and then, the cream of the crop, Judas Priest comes out and just does an amazing show. You got the list in front of you, Johnny?
Let me pull it up.
I do. I do. Okay. Let me do the
Yeah, I've
set
got
list.
it.
Okay. You got it. All right.
Now, did Rob come out on his Harley Davidson or his Triumph? Maybe does he ride a Triumph or a Harley?
I mean, he was known for that. Yeah. I have to say, yes, he did. Or he brought it out during Riding the Wind, you know, or after the drum solo. I mean, he definitely brought it out. I don't know if he came out on it. I'm sure somebody will tell us if they were there at this tour, the Painkiller tour. But they were coming back heavy and hard, and I do remember that motorcycle being on stage, which was nowadays, I don't think he could do that. Maybe he can. Maybe he can pull it off. I mean, he's Rob Halford, right?
Yeah, I just always wondered if it was a British bike or an American bike, but probably British, probably a Triumph or a BSA.
Triumph or BSA can't make that sound, so it had to be a Harley.
Oh, okay.
It had to be a Harley because they can't. The Triumph is is not as throaty,
Well, I would imagine for expense purposes, they probably used an American bike for the American tour because
right?
it probably was, a couple extra bucks to bring a motorcycle along with you, along
I
with.
do remember them fogging the stage really heavy and seeing the spotlight, right? That was it. The whole stage was nothing but fog, right? The fog machines were going, smoke machines were pumping. So the whole stage was just nothing but smoke. And he came out and you could see the headlight of the bike and you could hear it. You knew what was going to happen, but all of a sudden it just came through the smoke and he just pulled it out on stage. So go ahead, do the set list, buddy.
Oh, okay.
We're waiting to hear the
Well,
set list from Sunday, December 9th in 1990 at the Capitol Center.
yeah, they started out with "Hellbent for Leather," which, I mean, when I think of Priest, that's one of the songs that I think of. It, and Hellbent for Leather, that was off of Stained Class, right? Or
I believe so.
Killing Machine, as I believe it was called here in the US.
That's the album Killing Machine. That
I
was
think so. I think that's Killing Machine was what it was called in Great Britain. And in the US, it was called Stained Class. I could be getting that totally wrong.
the album was
No, no,
actually
no, no.
called Hellbent for Leather.
No, I'm
The
thinking of
album,
the
yeah.
albums. I'm
Yeah.
disregard all that. All right, starting the night out with the headliners Judas Priest, we had Hellbent for Leather, which again I want to say was from Stain. Was no somebody please tell me if it was on Stained Class or Killing Machine. Hellbent for
What?
Leather.
Hellbent for Leather?
Yeah,
It was on the album Hellbent for Leather.
but that was Killing Machine, right? In the U.S. in the Great Britain, it was Killing.
I'm looking at a 1978 release called Hellbent for Leather. Had the picture of Rob Halford's face with the glasses and like some cool like splattered paint like blood, and then it has a headband, and it's called Hellbent for Leather. Delivering the Goods, Rock Forever, Evening Star, Hellbent for Leather, Take on the World, Burning Up, Green Mantalucci with the two-pronged crown, Killing Machine, Running Wild, Before the Dawn, Evil Fantasies, Fight for Your Life, Running with the Wind Live, which I think is a bonus track.
Right. And Les Binks playing drums on that album. That's right before Dave Holland came in and became the drummer.
Man, our Judas Priest trivia really stumbling today, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That was a long time ago, though.
Yes.
So, can I continue to play the song?
Taking up the shower.
All right. We apologize that our Judas Priest trivia is not up to par, but we still love this band. Johnny's going to continue with the set list from Sunday, December 9th, 1990 at the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland.
Okay. After they opened with Hellbent for Leather, they went into Grinder, which is from the Great British Steel album. And then they played Electric Eye from that's Screaming for Vengeance, right, Rob? Electric Eye.
Believe so. Again, my Priest trivia, I can look it up here. Screaming for Vengeance, right?
Right. All right. Then all
Yes,
guns.
the Hellion Electric Eye. Yes, that is off of Screaming for Vengeance.
Right. And then comes All Guns Blazing, which I believe was off their latest album, right?
Johnny, why are you pushing the trivia questions? I do not
Sorry.
remember. I do not remember what if you want to go back and talk about some of the newer stuff, or some stuff that it was retained into my brain after 40 years, then we could do that. But please, Vin, we've already established the fact that our Priest trivia sucks. So please
Yes.
stop asking me questions.
All right.
That I want to answer that I'm not prepared to answer.
Right. No worries. All right. So after All Guns Blazing, we have the Sentinel, then Metal Gods again from British Steel, then Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
Then the Ripper.
That was a Nightcrawler. No. Okay, tell me what album it was on, Johnny.
Nightcrawler?
Yeah.
I do not know.
Okay, so you're they've done so many albums. Go ahead. I'm listening to they have.
Then after Nightcrawler, we have the Ripper. Then Beyond the Realms of Death. which went into Riding on the Wind. Then we had a drum solo by the aforementioned Dave Holland. Or no, that was with Travis. He was the new drummer. Sorry. I'm
Yes, he was the
okay.
new drummer.
We'll stop trying to throw in little tidbits to you.
No, don't
Then a
stop.
t-
It's kind of funny how much we love this band, but how
how
little
little we can
how little
recall.
we retained over the years. This is part of the whole
Oh my
Suffering
god.
Meatball Chronicles. The only reason I can remember the show is because I still have a ticket, to be honest with you, and
Okay.
the fact that Megadeth and Testament were there.
Well, speaking of drummers for Judas Priest, I got to bring up this trivia tidbit that I'm certain of is that Judas Priest had a link to Michael Schenker. And that was because on the Sin After Sin album, Simon Phillips played drums on that album. They tried to hire him for the band, and he did not play. Uh, he didn't. Oh, Jesus.
It's okay, John. It's okay. I'm laughing
Okay,
with you. I'm laughing with you.
so Simon Phillips played drums on Sin After Sin, and he then left left Priest, and in a year or two, he ended up playing drums on Michael Schenker's debut solo album, the Michael Schenker Group. And that
Yes.
is how we have the connection to Michael Schenker, who connects to
All
everybody
things
in the metal
lead
world.
everything leads back to MSG.
Yeah.
Everything in our minds. That trivia we know.
Yes, that I'm positive of.
You know that there's a connection there between drummers somewhere back in the late 70s. Because that first album, was it Perfect Timing,
No,
1980?
no, it was
Uh,
it's the one where he's sitting in a chair with no shirt on in the black pants.
like I remember that.
And Mo Foster played bass on that Schenker album.
Okay, wait. We're talking about Priest. Let's move on.
Yes.
You did you kind of went sideways with the drum
Yes.
solo,
I
which
had
rock
to
bands and metal bands used to do live. They would give the drummer his props and let him do, a 15-20 minute drum solo, if that.
yeah, and they
Right,
were
while the other
usually
band members took a break from playing speed metal all the time.
yes.
They're like, "It's on you, Mr. Drummer. Whoever's behind the kit,
It's time to
show us your job.
take our constitutional or whatever.
Go slow
Okay,
here."
so after the drum solo, we had A Touch of Evil, then Victim of Changes, then Painkiller, and then not even as an encore, but as the final song of the set, the Green Manalishi with the two-pronged crown,
Wait, let's go
which
back
led
to
to a
Victim of Changes.
three-song encore, Breaking the Law, Living After Midnight, and You Got Another Thing Coming. I mean, that is it's just amazing at such good songs they had that the whole set was chock full of classics.
Yeah. At this point, they were a well-established headliner and been on many tours in the states and were selling all kinds of vinyl. Uh, I was just looking at this list of Priest albums, and one that for me was a huge influence was the live album. I was just looking at it. Um,
Unleashed in the
it
East.
was released Unleashed in the East. That was done in 79. I remember hearing that. I'm seeing that album. I think Mike bought it, or one of his friends had it and we got it. And I remember listening to Unleashed in the East and just knowing that this was something completely different than the rock music that I was listening to at that age. And that album just gripped me. And from that point, I think I was a fan, a big fan. And fortunate enough to be there on this Sunday at the Capitol Center, not only to see one of the best metal bands ever. Little did I know that there was connection between them and Black Sabbath and, them and Michael Schenker. Uh, but they were so just like in your face, heavy. This is who we are. They created Rob Halford created a lot of things in metal, and one of them was that scream, that that piercing scream that he does in the music. It really wasn't being done by any other artist. You know what I mean? You didn't hear Ozzy doing a scream like that.
No.
You need, and all the other, yes, you got to give Robert Plant his kudos, because yes, he did do that, but it wasn't like Halliford's scream, which was just like metal to the core, like
Which is
you know,
definitely more operatic than Plant. Plant
right.
derived his from the old blues singers using a higher pitched tone, but
And yeah,
Halford
and
was pure opera.
what, but it was the scream. Well, I guess Bruce Dickinson was doing that scream as well. So we got to give him props because he was also, but Halford kind of invented that stuff. I think he did, and influenced a whole couple generations after him who used that scream. Even Phil Osamo was trying to scream because he was influenced by Phil Osamo, was the singer for Pantera. Uh, he was influenced by Priest and Halliford's vocals, and not only, let's just break it down. There was no metal look when it started, other than everybody wore black, right? Just was. Everybody just wore black. But
I mean,
Halford
maybe
really
jeans,
created, jeans, right.
dungarees.
Halford really created that, you know, uh, denim and leather meant you were metal, right? That,
Yes.
you know, uh, he did. He took it and defined it and brought it into the music, and it became part of the genre and all the other subgenres that followed. You know what I mean? You could instantly, back in the day, know, and this today too, some you know at some level, when you come across somebody, you're like, okay, he's into metal, whether it's a t-shirt they're wearing or their hairstyle. And nowadays, I guess it's, nose piercings or whatever, tattoos. Let's just
Yeah.
leave it at
Yeah.
tattoos. People can have nose piercing and tattoos. I don't really care. That's none of my business. But that just says, from the 80s all the way up into the 90s into the early 2000s, that was kind of, Halford. I mean, it's been refined over the years, and people, artists have brought their take in on the style, but Halford was the first. Rob Halford, in my eyes, was like, he kind of said, this is metal, this is who we are metal, and they all dress the same way, and they just screamed at your face and got your attention, and great songwriting and blistering guitar solos.
Well, I think Halford was the one who really set the standard for the operatic vocals in metal, which I mean, Ozzy was a fine singer, but he was technically not a very gifted singer, whereas Rob was.
Well,
And
again,
you
to
know,
Ozzy's
singers like
credit,
Jeff Tate of Queensryche took after the Rob Halford.
right.
Bruce Dickinson definitely took after the Rob Halford in his vocals. Um, I guess you could maybe say Dio also had a part to play in it, but Halford was doing it before most of us heard of Dio and Rainbow.
Right. So I kind of like to look at it this way, Johnny, is that, little kid growing up, Beatles, the Beatles did everything first,
Right.
right? When it came to rock music. Priest did everything first as far as metal goes. Now, people have come up behind him and pushed it even further, but they were the ones that said, "This is metal," right?
Yeah, I would agree.
'Cause Iron Maiden didn't have a look. They weren't all wearing the same stuff. They were just a bunch of dudes from England, you know? Sabbath was wearing black all the time. That is that a that's still a thing, so we
Yeah.
gotta give that to them because they wore black all the time. And Ozzy had kinda crazy setups, but Priest, like I said, came along, said, "This is metal, and this is what we do, and, uh, hope you'll come along for the ride." Alright, so, that was the set list that we couldn't get through from, December 9th, 1990. I was able to see Priest a couple more times after that that are very memorable shows for me.
Can I just
Um,
add something before
yeah,
we go
sure.
on
Go right
to
ahead, Johnny.
uh I did have the opportunity to see Priest in '86, I think it was, at the show that became famous for the Heavy Metal Parking Lot documentary. But because it was for the Turbo tour and I wasn't real happy with that album, I ended up not going to the show. So who knows? I could have been in the movie Heavy Metal Parking Lot, but
But you decided not to go.
I did not go to that show.
Well, and that
I
was when? 88?
'86, I believe.
86. Okay, yeah, that album did come out, I think, in 86. And for those of you that are not familiar with the documentary, all it was a guy walking around the parking lot with a VHS recording
Yes.
camcorder, a very early camcorder, and asking people, you know, what metal was. And it was at the Capitol Center parking lot. And they took all the footage and made a documentary out of this guy walking through the parking lot, shooting metalheads, partying like in the parking lot.
Tailgating, yeah.
Tailgating. Well, yeah, tailgating. That's right. Tailgating.
Yeah, check it out. If
So
you've never
you should.
seen Heavy Metal Parking Lot, check it out.
Right, that was shot right there in Maryland at the Capitol Center. And if you're listening, because this, if you've listened to the past episodes, we saw a lot of shows there, and
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in that parking lot. I have fond memories of the Capitol Center. So that show that we were just talking about was in that parking lot. But Johnny didn't go see the 86 Turbo tour
No,
because
I did
we
not.
as Priest fans were very disappointed in the synthesized pop music that all of a sudden out,
Yeah.
came out of
That's
the
a nice
Judas
way of
Priest
putting
camp.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it came out of the Judas Priest camp. We were all just like, "What is this?" And over time, yeah, everybody, now I kind of look back and go, yeah, that was one of their failures of an album, but it got radio play. And I think it tanked as far as selling because they kind of alienated all the metal fans here. Here we were just talking about them creating this really cool metal genre, vocal style, and the denim and leather, and the three guitarists, and massive drum solos, and then they produce like this radio friendly
Although I have to
it was way overproduced,
yeah,
for
I
its
have to
time.
admit I still have a certain fondness for the song Turbo. Um, I'm your turbo
Okay, no,
lover.
stop, no, stop.
It's catchy, it's hooky.
It
It
is,
it
but
it aged pretty well, like,
it
the
did.
the vocal hook anyway. I don't know about the synthesizer sounds with the guitars, but
Okay, cool. So let me get through this very memorable show. Of course, it was 14 years later from the show that we were just talking about. And again, it was on a Sunday and it was in July. It was July 18th, 2004 at what was Nissan Pavilion in Bristow, Virginia, which is now Jiffy Lube Live. But back then it was branded
Woo!
with the Nissan brand. And it was Ozfest 2004. And this particular Ozfest, is often cited as one of the best lineups in that festival's history. It had Black Sabbath, uh, Judas Priest, Slayer, Slipknot, all these bands. It was an Ozfest show. There were, you know, uh, a lot of bands on this Ozfest tour, but Black Sabbath was a headliner. Before them was Judas Priest, then Slayer, right? And then they had a couple other, Black Label Society and some other bands. I think Super Joint Ritual was on that main stage, which was,
Oh, okay.
Phil Anselmo's new side band during the Pantera kind of hiatus, breakup, whatever you want to call it. Um, and Slipknot on that a headline, the second stage, and Lamb of God was on that second stage as well.
Oh,
Um,
wow, that's a hell of a lineup.
right, and again, it was one of the best in the festival histories, and I remember that show because all original band members for both Judas Priest and Black Sabbath were on that stage together. It was pretty magical, and before Priest played, Slayer played on that main stage, and I had mentioned in one of the episodes that during that Slayer performance, there were two mosh pits on the right side and the left side of the lawn. And that was the show that I said I saw Prince William County police officers go into an active mosh pit and pull people out because they were being too violent. Um, and it was the most where we were wasn't really violent. We were kind of like on the right side of the lawn. The left side of the lawn, those guys were beating the heck out of each other, and people got tired of it, and the cops came in. Billy clubs, which I thought, man, they got
Woo!
a lot of
Got a wood
stones to
shampoo,
go.
huh?
So yes, that Slayer pit was burned in my brain, and I seen Slayer a bunch of times, but nothing that like that. I mean, Slayer pits are brutal, but that one, the cops came in. So that I do remember the Priest set. I do remember the Black Sabbath set. Both bands were like top of their game. Uh, And I think that was maybe one of the only times that Judas Priest actually played on an Ozfest stage. But they're very memorable. And I do have a set list, but it's not that important. They did do the encores were pretty much the same. Hellbent for Leather, Living After Midnight, and You Got Another Thing Coming.
Oh, yeah.
But they did do Green Mantalucci, um, and they did Metal Gods, Touch Evil. They did, great set from them. And then to wait another half hour to see Black Sabbath was just really magical. Those early Ozfests were something else. And then I saw them again at the Nissan Pavilion 4 years later. 4 years later, at what was called the Metal Masters Tour. The Metal Masters Tour was a 17-date concert tour of arenas across North America in August 2008, featuring Judas Priest promoting their album Nostradamus. And I like that album. Yes, it was a double-sided concept album, and yes, sometimes it just kind of chugged along and like you lost track of it. It was a concept album about that guy. So there, now, talk about a lot of operatic stuff and a lot of yeah, I think that may have been their first, like, concept album.
Yeah, I
So
believe so.
it was really well done. It was received okay. The singles on it were good, but, yeah, front to back, it was, a long listen, a really long listen. And at that Metal Masters tour, it was Judas Priest, Heaven and Hell, which was Dio era Black Sabbath. At that time, Sharon told Iommi that he couldn't use the Black Sabbath brand. So they went out and called it Heaven and Hell and did a tour doing they could do Black Sabbath songs because that was his music, but they couldn't say it was Black Sabbath without Ozzy. So they called themselves Heaven and Hell. And I think they had musicians in the band from that era too
Yeah,
that
yeah, it was
influenced Dio.
a piece a piece or however you say his name on drums, and Dio on vocals, Geezer
Yeah.
and Iommi
Dio was
on.
yeah, man, wow. That was again another magical show. Motorhead and Testament were there, but it was Testament, Motorhead, Heaven and Hell, and Judas Priest. That was the lineup
That's a
of the
hell of a
show.
lineup too, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what was pretty cool about that day was that, Testament came to the SiriusXM DC studios to do like a fan type of acoustic set. And I got I I got Steve and Mike into that studio, and all three of us got to see and meet and listen to stories from Chuck Billy and the band Testament. We saw
Nice.
them in the studio. We hung out with them. They signed a bunch of stuff. I have a poster right here behind me that was handed to me. So and it was already pre-signed by those guys. Um, and it was a really neat day because the concert was that afternoon or evening, right? So we started out at the SiriusXM studios in DC to see our heroes Testament. And then as we were leaving, we were in the elevator, and here comes Rob Halford with one of the programmers. And I guess they were getting ready to go downstairs to one of the insert studio to do a interview with Rob. And the door was open, and Steve looked at me and said, "Hey, there's Rob Halford." And he just looked at the programmer guy and said, "I didn't think of the fan," because all the other fans were left, and I still worked there. I got to show him around. This was in that we're leaving stage. Rob was coming in to do an interview. We briefly saw him as the elevator door was closing, and he said, "I thought there wasn't going to be any fans here." So the programmer had to explain to him why the guys in the elevator were freaking out. And I was like, "Steve, man, you got to stop, man. You can't, I work here. You can't, you got to." And the door
Gotta keep it
closed.
cool,
And
man.
and we left, and we got in the car. We came back here to Virginia and got ready for the show, and then went to the show and saw Testament open up for this Metal Masters tour, and there wasn't a lot of people in the seats, so we kept thinking that they were looking over at us, or Chuck Billy was like screaming at us because he knew like we didn't change clothes or anything. We're still wearing our metal garb from when we were there, and enjoyed the show. It was what a great day.
And
I gotta
I
tell you.
gotta add, Alex Skolnick, one of my favorite guitarists in all of metal. That guy can
Yes,
play his ass off.
he is
He's
still they are
actually
still
plays.
touring.
He had a jazz combo. I'm not sure if he still does that, when he's not doing stuff with Testament, but oh
Oh, I'm
my
sure he
god, that
is.
guy can play.
Well, they just released a new album, and they're touring on that album, but they didn't come to DC for some reason. They came to Baltimore, and it was like a random Wednesday night or whatever, so I didn't even bring
Oh,
it up. So, I have the set list from that Metal Masters tour, at the Nissan Pavilion. Um, they opened up with Prophecy, Metal Gods, Eat Me Alive, Between the Hammer and the Anvil, Devil's Child, Breaking the Law, Hell Patrol, Distant Aggressor, Angel,
Oh, yeah.
Electric Eye, Rock Hard, Ride Free, Painkiller, Hellbent for Leather, Living After Midnight, and you got another thing coming. What a set.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then Black Sabbath came on, and it was all Dio Black Sabbath. Fantastic show. If you were there or you saw this tour, just, let me know, because I mean, how these are metal gods to us, and to have, Motorhead and Testament. I think it was the first time I saw Motorhead. You know what? I may have seen him. I may have seen him. Yeah, I saw him in 1991 at a bar in Fort Lauderdale, but that's another story. So we need to do a Testament show, Johnny.
Yeah.
We need to do a Testament show because they're out on tour. We need to do that. But right now we're talking about Judas
We need
Priest.
to do a Motorhead show too.
Yeah, because like I said, I Lemmy. I mean, what can you say about Lemmy that hasn't been said? Um, I got a cool fact. Judas Priest, the band, have sold over 50 million albums, including 11 top 30 albums in the United Kingdom. In the United States, the band had 11 consecutive albums to be certified gold, platinum, or higher by the Recording Industry Association of America, starting with 1977's Sin After Sin. So these guys,
Wow.
again, got a lot of airplay back early, but then they got, Living After Midnight, and they had uh, uh, Breaking the Law. That song was huge on the radio,
And I also
and it was
gotta
still
add,
metal.
lot of metal bands named themselves after Judas Priest songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Exciter comes to mind. Um, Shoot, I used to know a whole bunch, and now I'm
Oh,
totally
I'm sure there
blanking.
are. Today's not a very good trivia day for
No,
us, John. Let's just leave
I
it
should
at
just
that.
shut up.
We just established that our trivia is off today. Hey, look, you know, uh, let's just explain that we do this to jog our memories about these great shows we've seen with these huge, big artists that are just, part of our DNA. And we don't claim to know everything. And we like to laugh at ourselves. So today was one of those days where we're just, or this episode is one of those episodes that we can honestly laugh at ourselves because our trivia is lacking. Now, on another day, it could be different, and Johnny could be bing, 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 bing off the top of his head. Yeah, back here, back then, this happened. You've heard him do it on this show. Today's not one of those shows.
No, today's not my day.
All right, well, that's our Judas Priest memories. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll try to be better. Probably not, because we're old, and the brain cells don't work as fast as they used to. But we appreciate you listening.
Go get your own damn podcast.
Right on. Get your own damn podcast.